Welcome, I'm Dr. Saida, and this is Redefining Femininity, an interview series with some amazing people, colleagues, and friends. And today, my beloved, and this is Sol. Should I call you Sol, Sebastian?
Just so.
Okay, Sol. And Sol provides personal and professional development for men who are movers and shakers in the world. And of course, he's my hunky hubby. So I thought I should bring him on so we could hear his point of view on what's going on. And specifically, babe, the first question is,
Give it to me.
what does femininity mean to you?
Okay, so it's such a culturally loaded question. It's a little hard to answer without stepping into murky waters. But I'll tell you, I could say a lot of things about femininity that would really fall under some nothing but sort of culturally contrived ideals. And I think there's a lot of that out there today. It's like a lot of posturing and displaying and virtue signaling around the idea of femininity. And I think from both sides, men and women, having this discussion and creating a lot of very shallow ideas around it. I think to understand true femininity is a state that exists far deeper than any political or socio-cultural discourse. I think it's a state of being that drops so much deeper than what you can actually talk about in any accurate way. It's more of a beingness than any way in which we behave, because there's very arbitrary ideas around how we act when we're feminine and how we act when we're masculine. And I'm sure you've talked a lot about this in your interviews with other people, how what's masculine when a woman appears very assertive and very Joan of Arc-esque, let's say, is she being more masculine, or is she expressing a more fierce expression of the feminine? So it's a bit of you start wading in very archaic, vague territory. So I don't like to think of it in those ways in terms of action and how we express ourselves, because it's a very diverse thing. But I will say that the deep feminine is something that shows up for women when they sink so deeply into their body that they're not trying to relate to the world through the defining lens or through the organizational language-centered mind. And I think you can only just have to look at brain science to understand how there's a part of our brain that's very open. It just takes in everything, every nuance, every subtle nuance of the world, and on a very instinctual level. And then there's a part of the brain which reduces that into sort of very pointed data that it can act upon and orientate itself with. So these are much deeper aspects of masculine and feminine that exists for both men and women. I mean, if you want to talk about that, you want to look at brain science, you want to look at sort of how we go about relating to the universe around us.
But I was actually more interested in what it means personally to you.
Well, that's personal. It is.
Okay.
I mean, I am coming from an academic. I am speaking quite academically, but look, I do see that it's something you notice if anyone's awake to women. It's something you really notice when a woman's in that space.
And so, with this definition, was there a particular moment in your journey where that became obvious? Like, did something happen, or was it a slow unfoldment? I'm just curious how you came about to have that understanding.
Well, you happened. That's what happened. You happened. I mean, look, I had a lot of very strong ideas about the world and very, very fierce sort of like pursuit of truth. and you know, very strong ideas, and like I said, that narrowing sort of idea about this is how it is about the world, and then you came along, you know, and you gave me a sense of what it means to really drop out of that orchestration of language, you know, perception of the world, and drop deeply, like in a very profound way, into the body, into my you know, I'll call my beasthood, my instinctual nature that exists below the level of the language mind, of the reductive mind, and so yeah, like that's not a thing you can put into words, you know, and all this political rhetoric that's being bounced around between men and women. It's just, to me, it looks like just just a lover's quarrel, like on a mass scale. It's just like it's like really,
Right.
it's incredible that how if women and men can both allow themselves to drop out of that socio-political noise, they may actually start to see the deeper beauty and resonance of each other.
Well, you know, he likes to jump ahead. No, you're just very intuitive, because the next question is actually about that. It's about the current divisive nature of discussions around masculinity and femininity. And so I'm curious if you had like one thing that you'd want the viewers to consider in terms of healing this dynamic, creating a healthy kind of vibrant dynamic between the masculine and feminine. What would that be?
Just one?
Okay. Well, yeah, just to keep it simple.
Oof. Okay, there's a few things, so let me see if I can reduce myself to one. You know, I think the first thing to consider is there is a lot of this socio-political noise out there, that it's extremely hard to drop into that space I was talking about if that becomes your only way of perceiving the world. And you know, I think there's a lot to be said for just a deepening of listening
On both sides.
On both sides, you know, and I see that men are really, you know, I do see that women are the let's say the group, the mass of women, and the shadow that exists in the mass of the female species in this world. There is something really emerging that needs to be said, it needs to be exercised, it needs to be witnessed and said and named, and that's a beautiful thing. I don't think there's actually any man I know that actually really has a problem with that. I think the problem occurs is when there's a lack of responsibility on the part of women to then just make it about the man, and it's 100% his fault. And so that, you know, as we all know now, there's a very strong awareness that's now coming up about the victim perpetrator narrative. And look, all power to women for speaking out, but it needs to some point go to a place where it's like, where do they take part in that dynamic? Because it's not just happening with one or two. It takes two to party in this way.
So your one thing sounds like yes to clearing that which needs to be said.
Absolutely.
But simultaneously to take responsibility for the womb to power journey that everybody is on, whether you're a man or a woman, in the conversation, so that can help bridge, because it is a dynamic thing. Femininity and masculinity, they're dynamic within ourselves, they're dynamic within connections. So before we go, because these are short interviews, do you have like one last thing you'd really love to leave the viewers, specifically more around the topic of redefining femininity, and anything you'd like to offer?
Well, that's easy. If you want to make a change, start with what's right in front of you. Start with what's right in front of you, whether it's your mother, whether it's, for men I'm speaking to here, whether it's your mother, whether it's your sister, whether it's an ex-girlfriend, your current, you know, lover, wife, the people around you in your local sphere, your sisters, your lover, you know, your lover, anyone, like, start there. disengage from the socio-cultural noise that's just so divisive and you know, has a lot of deep political agendas attached to it. So just turn that shit off and rise above it, and actually start with what's in front of you, and listen like with every cavity in your ear. Listen to what's actually going on, not just in the surface content, but what's going on behind that with the woman. Like feel into her on an instinctual level. If she wants to rant at you, let her rant. Like it doesn't mean anything about you. It just doesn't. You don't have to take it all personally, but you do need to listen beyond what's being said, and you may actually learn something. And the same goes for women. The same goes exactly in the reverse. You know, to peel off the tyrannical projections that you're placing on men and systems and patriarchy and even Donald Trump. Like, just fucking give it up. Take your power back and stop putting it out there in the world, and really come home to what's actually in your local sphere, and work with that. You know, that to me is the only really legitimate way forward in my mind.
Well, I love that you say that, because one of the attributes that many of the speakers have brought around femininity is the receptivity. It is the deep listening. And so you're leaving us with the invitation to not only listen to one another more, but also to listen more deeply to self. So I really want to thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
For being my man.
She sprung this one on me just half an hour ago. So.
we need to hear from everyone. And so I'm glad that you joined the conversation.
Always.
Thank you so much for being here, for listening. I have a little invitation for you, so stay tuned. You're invited to join this amazing conversation. Soon I'll be doing a training, Redefining Feminine Power, and I want you to be there. So click the link that comes with this video, join. Just for joining, I will be giving you a free downloadable gift, so definitely watch out for that. And if you can't make it at the time that the training is happening, don't worry. Because you've signed up, we'll make sure you get the replay, all right? So all you need to do is just click on the link, join the conversation, and let's redefine feminine power together.